Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Season 2 finale of Reginald the Vampire. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, I thought it was interesting with the Sarah circumstances at first, where Mike's going through the door and it's kind of like she's just waiting, and then all of a sudden the voice that is telling her to go to the gift shop is getting more and more aggro. Now the question is why? I guess it's like most people, once the gift shop opens itself up, they have the pull and tug to go through, which she felt it a little before, but she was like, no, I'm not going. And even Mike told her not to go because it's like, it's not your time. You shouldn't have to go. Because it is a thing of like, I guess it's like, right, most people just go through, but it's like most people don't have the circumstances she does. It's like they go because it was their time, you know, whether it was cut short or not, it was still their time. Well, her circumstances, yeah, hers was cut short, but it was cut short for celestial reasons. It was an angel that killed her. So you think that cut her some slack in the grand scheme of things. So we have that whole situation. Obviously, back on Earth, we have Reginald just straight up being like, yeah, I'm going to find Uriel and I'm going to make him pay. It is interesting that it is Maurice the one that tries to pull him away from the whole path of vengeance, but it's also because he was on that path like after Mike died, because he felt like that's all he could really do and try to focus on when it comes to like, that was his way of trying to help and be there for Todd. It's like, because he didn't know how to be there for him any other way. It's like, right, I can get revenge. Mike was important to me. He was important to a lot of people. So, like, I can do that. And he knows what that path leads to. Especially because Reginald, it's like, killing someone out of revenge. Anytime Reginald has kind of killed anyone, it has been vampires, but it's always been in self-defense. It's never been like, I'm actively going out to murder you. So that's a little bit different. Plus, he's also killing an angel, which there'll be celestial consequences for that. It's like, to be fair, Nikki suffered those consequences as well, but I mean, they weren't everlasting, but still. And even Angela and Maurice had that conversation, because Angela's like, there's no way, like, because she's like, Reginald's too much of a teddy bear to do, like, go out and like that. And even Maurice is like, yeah, I thought so too, but it's like, his entire world was taken from him when Sarah was killed. So understanding that, it's like, I can easily understand and see Reginald doing that. So Maurice's plan was to find Uriel before Reggie does. And he does, and he finds Uriel praying, because Uriel recognizes the errors of his ways. It's like, he is repenting. He is sad. He might not really fully understand the emotions, the human emotions, but it's still the thing of, I thought I was kind of lost. I found a new home here, and I thought I found a new home and people who took me in, and I killed the good in my life, whether it's Sarah, Mike, Raphael, like, who was like a brother to me, and now was like, I beseech you, and now you won't hear me. I'm here lost in the dark, which is irony. You went after Mike because he's a being in the dark, and you talk about vampires being evil, and they're creatures of the night. You were supposed to be a creature of the light, and look at you. You're the one that's lost in the darkness right now, ironically enough, which Mike kind of is too, which we'll get to in a second. But when it's all said and done, Maurice still tries to convince Reginald not to do this. He understands that Reginald needs to, especially when Reggie's like, I have to. I'm going to be spending the rest of my life like carrying this with me, this pain of losing Sarah, and it's like, he needs an outlet for it. It's like, I will not be okay. Like, this will rot me from the inside if I don't. And that's the sad thing, like, with revenge, too. It's like, even if he kills Uriel, it won't bring Sarah back. It's not like it'll ease anything. One pain will be replaced by another, but he'll just be empty, because that revenge is all he has going for him right now, you know? Because he's not even worried about Claire's vision about vampires versus vampires, good versus evil. Because I forgot to talk about it. He finally discovered what Balestro's gift to him was, and that is the ability to stop time. Like, which I was like, I'm wondering, is Balestro supposed to be kind of like the equivalency of like Amenadiel from Lucifer? It wasn't until Reginald started stopping time that I was like, oh, I'm surprised that never immediately came to my mind. You know, the fact is Balestro can do that. I mean, I don't know if there's any other angel his ranking that can do that. Just kind of like I brought up in Lucifer, like different angels have, because I brought up Azrael, like she is the angel of death. and like she had like a blade that could kill anything and everyone, because that's what her weapon is. So, and obviously we saw Abraham having an axe. So like different angels and different people have different things. So Balestro seems to be able to stop time, but I wonder, could any other angel do that, or is that just something unique to him? But that's what, like to say, this episode was the first episode that made me think about the Amenadiel parallel. But it is a temporary thing of like, he can't pause someone forever, but he basically has to focus on it. He has to kind of like, it's through intention. So like by focusing, he can stop someone, which I love that he tested it on two perfect test subjects, that being LeBron and Penelope. What's also interesting though is like when he freezes you, you don't feel anything. It's not like a Loki situation of like you're feeling all time all at once. Like when they put the thing on Loki and then B-15 smacked him and he was feeling everything like in like real time to some extent. Like it didn't seem like that was the case, because when he slapped LeBron, when LeBron came back, LeBron didn't feel anything, which I love that he was like, whoa, unfreeze Penelope, what did she get stuck this way? And then they immediately pissed off afterwards. I was like, oh cool. Also, good on them getting out of wherever Balestro left them last episode. I was like, are they stuck there forever? Is he going to find out, be like, oh, let me pop them back in? We just never got an answer to that. It's like, hey, they're back. Let's not ask questions. It's just, it is what it is. I guess Balestro was like, right, I forgot about you guys. All right, boom. Or did that place eventually open up on its own? And I'm curious how that worked. Either way, they immediately piss off because that's all their purpose was. And because they were there, oh, Reginald, you basically helped save vampire species, so we're sucking up to you. But it's like, cool, you use this as test subject, we're going to bounce now. And it's like, okay. They probably feel like we've done enough for Reginald now that even the score, despite us kind of being shitty to him all of season 1 and kind of being shitty this season with the whole Deacon situation. But they're like, oh, we've done enough for Reginald to pay him back. It's like, I don't think so, but whatever. But either way, getting back to it, Reginald confronts Uriel and keeps freezing him over and over. Because Uriel says like he was paying for whatever answer was going to come, and now he sees, oh, you are the answer. Like, this is for you to put me out of my misery, essentially. And it's just like, Reginald's almost like, don't look at this as a good thing. Like, you took my entire world. And just like that painful scene of him just freezing him over and over again. It's like, you took Sarah. She was so special. She was such a bright light. And you took that from me. You tore my world apart. And now it's like, I'm going to like make you suffer. I'm going to make you pay. And he has a flamethrower, but he still can't bring himself to do it, because like regardless of what Uriel did, it's just like, it's like I shouldn't go down that route for it. And it's just like, you suck for what you did to Sarah, but the fact that I will always be mad at you, but I forgive you. And it's kind of like, it's more than you deserve. And Reginald walks away. It's just like, and it's like Uriel's like, I can take you to Sarah, and he's just like, please do that. And the two of them get reunited, which is beautiful. I love that she got her hit on Uriel, understandably. Which, yes, Reginald forgave you, but not me, you know? It's like, not only did you kill me, you killed Mike. And now it's like, oh, you killed Reginald too. It's like, no. He brought me here. Because he is still considered alive, considering, like, hey, none of his photos popped up in this place. And they talked about it. It's like, this is supposed to be like an in-between spot. So, not quite purgatory, but it is an in-between spot regardless. And the gift shop pops up, but not for Sarah. It's for Uriel. Which also, like, he wasn't concerned about getting Reginald back. Because Reginald wasn't even really concerned about that at the time. It was just about getting to Sarah and trying to bring her back. I did think it was interesting that he ended up seeing his toaster again, which I was like, they in the context of the episode, they never say anything. But because the recap showcases, I was like, oh, that's interesting that they're focused on Claire, like, frying his toaster. I was like, with her powers, I'm like, what's the point of that? And it's like, oh, it comes back into form later on. I'm like, so I guess it shows something that's significant to Reginald. It's like the thing makes perfect toast. But I'm like, I guess it's like, that's the only, like, well, it can't take on the form of Sarah because Sarah's here with him. So it took on the form, whatever that being may have been, whether it was God, some other angel, some entity. I thought it was so interesting too, like, hey, the place that they go to all the time, the bench that they sit on, I love how that was like displayed. It's like, oh, it's like very like this, not abstract. It looks like something like almost like a, I don't know art and I don't know artists. I was like Van Gogh maybe, like it had like this Van Gogh like paint style to it. Once again, I might be like, oh, that's not Van Gogh, you fucking artistic pleb. I'm sorry, I don't know artists in their work. I'm not the art dude, so. But either way, the toaster came to them, is willing to grant them a wish, and Reginald was like, yeah, bring Sarah back to life. And she's like, well, what about you? It's like, no, I came here with the thought process, if we had an opportunity, there's the equivalent exchange of there has to be a balance, so my life for Sarah's. And Sarah's like, no, and not once did it cross your mind, hey, maybe I would want you to not do this, but for him, it's like, let me do my thing, like let me kind of like have my let me do my awesomeness thing without having to think about what you might think of me. And she's like, wow, when'd you become this guy? He's like, I've grown a lot, since you died. So there is a loophole to this situation, which I love. Like, oh, Reginald's like, oh, I love the loopholes, and Sarah's like, he really does. So it's like, right, Reginald has a very unique circumstance. That is, he technically has two lives. He has his human life, which I guess the reason why they were saying that's kind of a loophole too is that because he never officially died, he immediately became a vampire. So it's like you would think that count as a death, but it's like he technically has his human life and he had to basically die as a vampire, which, to be fair, that was supposed to be the beginning of all this too. It's like, right, Reginald must die. So that could be that prophecy could be interpreted two ways. He is now back as, we'll jump ahead a little bit, but he's back as a human, so he died as a vampire. But the argument could also be like, right, he needs to become a vampire again and die as Reginald. Like, Reginald has to die and stay dead, and he has to become a vampire again. Maybe that's just because I had a feeling the moment they popped back, I was like, at first I was like, well, my thought was, not unless they melded into one being, which even he was like, yo, in case we never get a chance, we don't have mouths and we become part of the stars, I want you to know, like, my world changed because of you, the moment I met you, and nothing but, like, a lot of great things have come about that, and she felt the exact same way. But, like, the moment they were alive and he's out in the sun, I was like, the fact they're just showing him in the sun and Sarah's inside, it's like, they switch places. She's become a vampire and he hasn't. He's human again. Begs a lot of question. Does he still have his time stop ability, or did he lose that? Because the whole thing, the thing said was like, oh, everyone gets what they deserve. So Sarah gets to live again and Reginald gets to live again. He never wanted this to be a vampire thing. He became accustomed to it, and now he's human again. Which I don't know if that's supposed to be ironic. Like, is that... I mean, once again, it's not like Balestro could see the future coming either. So I don't know if he really accounted for this. But the thing is, Reginald also had a very unique ability. He could compel anyone. Plus, he got this time stop ability. So did Sarah get any of that now that she got Reginald's life as a vampire? Did she gain his power? So can she compel people who are even vampires? And does she have the time stop ability now? Or she just start from scratch? Which is bad, because now it's like, cool, you're going to have to rein that in. Which I'm wondering, is Reginald going to offer to be... She probably won't, because like Reginald never fed on Sarah and he never would. So, but I'm sure I could easily see Reginald offering himself up to Sarah. Like, right, you get to eat me. I'm perfectly fine with that being like our arrangement, but she's probably like, well, because now she's going to have to be under the tutelage of probably Maurice and Angela, which is going to be interesting. Them teaching her how to be a vampire and Reginald teaching her as well. I'm sure he's going to take over the tutelage, but it's like, right, he's lived it firsthand, so it is kind of sad. It's meant to be that Romeo and Juliet, because I thought like there would be a point where Reginald would have to turn her into a vampire. I thought that's where that was going. Them switching places, him being human again, her being a vampire. Didn't suspect that to be the route. Like I said, my surefire thing was like, right, they were both going to be vampires together at some point. So that's kind of an interesting development, but it's also to play into that Romeo and Juliet thing of just always going to be something cosmically that kind of keeps them apart on some level. But they still managed to make it work. Even with the previous circumstances, they can make this work too. It's just, I think it's also supposed to be the irony that like Sarah grew up in the religious family situation she did, and now it's like, oh, she's a creature of the night, which I'm curious. I feel like in the future, we've never circled back to her family circumstances since season 1 where her brother came to track her down. So I could definitely see it being a situation of now that she's a vampire, they've come to track her down after her experience with angels and now being a vampire, and how that would all correlate, especially for her family being the religious beings that they are, people that they are, finding out that she is a creature. There's a lot of interesting ways they can handle that if they wanted to. Also presents an opportunity for Reginald to actually go visit his parents now. So I'm curious. It feels like the storyline would be eventually Reginald going back to being a vampire, but that's why I brought up before. I don't know if that's supposed to correlate with him having to die, ends up saving the day, and it's like he has to sacrifice his human life to become a vampire again. We'll have to wait and see on that front. Another element to this is Todd. He gets visited by Mike, because him and obviously Reginald connected over losing the people they care about. What was unexpected, like when everything was flashing, it was kind of going full like poltergeist in the slushy shack. I was like, is it Sarah trying to reach out? But then Mike pops up. I was like, interesting. But Mike's not back from the dead. He's a ghost. Which I was like, isn't that how it worked in Vampire Diaries? Because it's like the supernatural, those who were supernaturals kind of were stuck in this, like, because Jeremy was like the only person at the time, because he died and came back, could see he could see the supernatural world in that capacity, but no one else could. So I kind of felt like that, because like Todd's the only one that saw Mike. We don't know if any other supernatural could have seen him, like could like Maurice or Angela, because they showed up after Mike disappeared again. But it's like interesting, because Mike walked into the darkness, but then it becomes a question of, well, because there is no heaven for vampires, because he died as a vampire, so he pops up here, and it's like, oh, is this supposed to be like some version of hell? Like he's kind of in the, as I keep saying that world, I was like, oh, it's kind of purgatory. It's like, maybe this is supposed to be a pseudo purgatory. Like here you are with the world, you're able to see the real world, but you're not able to interact with it. Ironically enough, the only person that we saw that could see you was Todd. Todd is a regular human, so if he as a regular human can see you and no one else can, that must mean none of the supernaturals would have been able to see you. So it almost felt like, I don't know if it was meant to be a thing of this was Mike's opportunity to properly say goodbye, because he missed Todd and wanted to talk to Todd, because Todd was the last person on his mind before he like went through the door, and Todd's been thinking about him. So it felt like he kind of needed to say what he needed to say to Todd in regards of, you don't need a vampire to become a vampire to change yourself and be a different person. Like, look at what you're able to. Like, this is your purpose. Like, the happiness you feel welcoming in customers, this is kind of where you belong. But then after saying that, he disappears. So it's like, but Todd's like, right, wherever you are, Mike, I will wait as long as it takes. So it could just be a thing of Mike can't be there for extended periods of time. Like, it is a thing of he probably has to, like he dematerializes. It probably, well, he's a ghost. Being a ghost is a newfound thing, so he probably has to learn how to like keep himself here, and that might take some time. I don't know. Poor, like, you know, when Maurice and Angela heard that, they were just like, right. And Angela's like, you okay, buddy? He's like, yeah, of course. She's like, yeah, just asking. It's like, poor Todd, because everyone's gonna think you're nuts for that. So we'll see. We'll see what the future potentially may hold for that. And then finally, there's the Maurice and Angela side of things, where, you know, Angela's got a new lease on life. You know, she wants to go off to Paris, but Maurice wants her to kind of go out there vigilanting it up with him. But she's kind of like, no, that's your thing, not mine. But ironically enough, she does decide to side with him, because he was like, right, like, think about when we first met. Like, you used to be about something, and she's lived so many lives that she's talked about it, so she lost who she was initially and became so many different people. You know, forever's a long time, and she just got warped and wrapped up in more so just about herself and not any other fight or any caring about any other person. She's cared about people, sure, but it's always kind of sadly ended up being a fleeting thing. But when Maurice is helping out Irma, who got evicted from her place, not even officially, her landlord just locked the door and made it so she couldn't get her stuff, and he's telling her to move out. Maurice shows up to help him and Angela. They kick some ass, and Helper's like, right, this ain't the place you should stay, so, like, we'll stay here while you get your stuff, and, you know. So I was like, oh, that's neat. It does seem like it's all meant to be, considering, like, once again, she has the same name as your mom, so it felt poetic. And she's like, oh, she now knows they're vampires. And I love Angel like, yeah, we're vampires. We're here to save the world. It's like, kind of showing the path that the vampires are on. And I'm sure this in itself is probably maybe a tee up for the whole vampire, like, civil war of good versus evil vampires. You know, lines in the sand are getting drawn and everything. So I'm curious, is this the last we would see of Irma? Like, you know, or will we see more of her in the future, like, interact with Maurice? Because she'd be one of the few humans that knows the truth about, oh, vampires exist, and what, you know, what that means for them going forward, or like for her going forward, like what's next for her. But I love, and I think it's super sweet, the Angela and Maurice situation, because it's like he wants her to stay and be a fellow deacon with him. It's like, right, we can run things together. The fact is, we could do so much good together. Because yeah, you came here for the fight, but you're it's kind of like the old Angela again, the one that he met when they first met. And she's like, all right, give me a second to think about it. I was like, you're not going to think about it long. And she immediately turns back around. Nope, yeah, I thought about it, accepting. And I was like, yeah. Not only are you doing this whole deacon thing together, it's like, it's been unclear what their relationship is. It's kind of like, we're having fun. We're probably not labeling it, but it feels like, yo, keening and queening it up a little bit this moment. So I thought that was a beautiful arc to this whole situation between them, but also for Angela's growth. So we didn't catch up with anyone else this episode because I think we kind of got the resolutions a lot in the previous episode. So we're kind of closing the chapters this season on these storylines of these other characters. So where this all takes us next, who knows? At the time of me recording this, Sci-Fi has not renewed the show for a third season yet, so hopefully, fingers crossed. I also, once again, have never read any of the Fat Vampire books, so I don't even know like how far this is veered off from those books or how similar it is, you know. Because a Sci-Fi adaptation I think of is like the Magicians. The Magicians went in a very different direction than the books. They covered some of the stuff from the books, but it was just kind of like, and certain, I think basically where season 2 ends is kind of where the books ended storyline wise. Once again, there's a lot of stuff I'm sure that wasn't adapted and changed, but for the most part, like the later parts of the show kind of became their own thing, to my understanding. Someone who's read the books could confirm or deny that. I'd also love, if you coming across this and you've read the Fat Vampire books, I'd love to know, like, in this correlation of like, are they close to the books, or have they veered off severely? How much stuff have they covered? Because I actually don't know how many Fat Vampire books there are. So I'm sure there's still plenty of story to adapt if they wanted to. Like I said, depending on whether they veered so far off course or not. But yeah, I'd love to see a season 3 with these new changes and these new dynamics and what it mean in the long run. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.